I'm Simon Schillebeeckx. I'm an assistant professor of strategic management at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Business in Singapore Management University. My research focus is in the field of innovation and sustainability, specifically looking at how new technologies and how new ideas are being implemented by businesses and governments to address sustainability challenges. One of the big challenges that we face currently in the world relates to climate change, relates to how do we meet the needs of 7 billion people in a planet that is resource constrained. And so much of the research that I'm conducting and that I hope to conduct in the future tries to study solutions for this and potentially also come up with solutions that might help address some of these problems. So what we're doing is we're conducting in-depth interviews with industry experts, with entrepreneurs, and with government officials from a variety of countries all over the world that are active in this space and are changing the way old problems are being solved. Very concretely, a study that we're working on now, commissioned by United Nations Environment and the Sustainable Digital Finance Alliance, looks at how digital technologies, specifically the intersection of blockchain technology, which is an area of interest in Singapore, and AI and machine learning, and then also IoT, so the Internet of Things, sensors, satellites, drones, all of those kind of measuring devices. So how these technologies together enable a new kind of economy. That's what we're hoping. So what we're calling the digital green economy. So for a long time, businesses have done corporate social responsibility or have worked on sustainability. And what that generally means is that they've tried to do less bad, so reduce their environmental impact, do some social projects somewhat tangential to what the company is actually doing. And that's great. And we need to encourage that, and we need more green energy and all of those practices. But what we see now with this, what we call the digital green economy, is really an emergence of businesses that are solving a business opportunity that is inextricably linked to also addressing one of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think this is a very big shift in what we see in businesses, that they solve a genuine problem that businesses have, but in doing so, they almost accidentally, as an inevitable consequence, are also addressing sustainable development challenges. And that's really something that I think is quite new. We talked to a company out of New York that is creating a market to predict and ensure weather events at a very local space. So weather is an extremely important factor that is affected by climate change, but also affects agriculture, for instance. So you have lots of let's say poor farmers in African countries, in Southeast Asia, that don't have access to any kind of insurance product. By giving access to insurance products to local communities, to local farmers, they lower their risk in terms of how exposed they are to sudden shocks. So they can get access to finance, they have a form of collateral because they have a guaranteed income thanks to the insurance. And that means they can start investing in better grains, in some kind of technologies that is going to increase their yields and, as a consequence, better meet their future needs in terms of production, their own consumption, and just improve their access to finance. In terms of practical outreach, this report we're doing with United Nations could have a big impact because it reaches a broader audience. This report will eventually go to the G20. That is, in terms of impact, probably the most we can really hope for as academics. In terms of insights that we create, I think what's interesting to see is that these new technologies that are making headways in the news all the time in terms of like the impact that AI can have on productivity and potentially the negative impact it can have on employment, or the impact blockchain can have, which is typically talked about cryptocurrencies. And we see very different types of businesses that are using these technologies to achieve very different goals. I mean, this is a problem that obviously exists at multiple levels, right? So I think as an individual, there is a lot of things that we can do. Like if everyone in the world would consume as much as Singaporeans do on average, we would need 4 planets. So we are extremely unsustainable here. When people think we can just throw this stuff away, they tend to forget that this is a finite planet and you can't throw anything away. There is no away. So at the individual level, the main challenge is behavioral change. With Alipay in China, where we did a case study on their project called Ant Forest, which has over 300 million users now, where people are actually incentivized to change their behavior via a simple online app, and they get rewarded in digital trees. And eventually, when the tree has grown high enough, the company itself, Alipay or Ant Financial, is actually planting that tree in Inner Mongolia, in the desert, in order to halt desertification. At the organizational level, in my opinion, if you're in the oil and gas business, you have to think about transformation, radical transformation. How do we redefine ourselves from being an oil and gas business to being an energy provider? And how do we move into greener technologies that are actually sustainable? And then at the highest level of government and then transnational organizations, making those changes is very important, not only because it changes a specific behavior, but also because it changes a mindset. Government should be the good shepherd and not only take care of its current population, but also take care of the future generations.